I will need to speak to the colleagues who sent you that bio. It seems to me a little bit over the top. Let me start off to say this is the best part of my day, to be interacting with all those role players that support us in the G20 presidency. Let me also thank the previous speaker, Ambassador, for focusing on Africa. As you know, Africa is the major part of our foreign policy focus. Of course, in Africa, we want peace and we want security. And, well, first of all, we want development. We want progress for all the people on the African continent. So to achieve that, we need peace and security. And then, of course, it's very evident the role that faith and religion and all of you in this room play in creating an environment that is safe and peaceful and therefore conducive to sustainable development. So I'm very glad you pointed that out. The African Union and its structures are, of course, also the focus of our foreign policy in the multilateral space. What happens in Africa is what we then take to the international community, like the UN and the multilateral systems that are out there. But anyway, that's not my job today. I was requested to take you a little bit through the G20, what we do this year as the president of the G20. So as you know, the G20 has been established in 1999. In 2008, it then moved on to summit level. So since 2008, it has been an event that is hosted throughout a year, and then it culminates in summit more or less in November, because by 1 December, you should hand over to the next president of the G20. So we are this year chairing, having the presidency of the G20 to actually culminate 4 years of developing countries having the presidency of the G20. So what we are doing this year is continuing the Sustainable Development Agenda, continuing the emphasis on ambition for emerging markets, for developing countries, and for those countries that are normally not in the bigger decision-making scheme of things. So, as you know, in 2002, in 2022, it was Indonesia, 23 India, 24 Brazil, and this year South Africa. Next year, we start a new cycle of the G20. So this will come out in my few words today. So maybe just to set the global context. As you know, the world is facing severe and relentless challenges that are testing global human solidarity amongst nations. That was the bedrock of the formation of the UN. The UN was, of course, formed 80 years ago. So that is one of the main issues that we as South Africa engage in, is how the world has changed in 80 years and what are we doing to contribute to a reformed United Nations system. Very important, we are not creating anything else or alternative in a BRICS structure, for example. We are supporting the idea of a reformed and strengthened United Nations multilateral system that is truly inclusive of everyone on this planet. So the geopolitical landscape is definitely today marked by escalating tensions, shifting alliances, and very significant economic changes. The UN Secretary General said that the world of impunity, of inequality, and of deep uncertainty, all fraying at the seams of the global order. Growing unilateralism, protectionism, inequality, and underdevelopment takes place in this world today, and most countries, therefore, fail to meet their Sustainable Development Goal targets. And as you know, those targets are due by 2030. So the multilateral system of governance, including the multilateral trading system, is under severe stress. We also know that it's times of lower overseas development assistance to many of these countries that will need it so much. And there are increasing number of conflicts across our own continent, which is a threat to democracy and what we mentioned here, peace and security, and therefore also development. There's a renewed scramble for critical and transition minerals, just energy transition minerals. Artificial intelligence, a critical and strategic tool, but also a potential threat to our work we want to do in terms of equality amongst people and nations. The impact of climate change and natural disasters are also impacting on developing countries. So that in that scenario, that takes us then to our G20 presidency, and I'm going now to give you, in that context, a little bit of an overview. So as you might know, our theme for this year of our presidency in 2025 is solidarity, equality, and sustainability. This theme is driven by our conviction that our challenges can only be resolved through cooperation, collaboration, and partnership, albeit in a volatile and polarized geopolitical environment. We continue to seek sustainable and innovative solutions through dialogue, collaboration, and cooperation. So just to mention that South Africa's G20 presidency therefore stands firm in the belief that multilateral cooperation is not optional, it is imperative. And unilateral actions that determine that or that undermine a rules-based order should not be tolerated. This year will mark 80 years of the United Nations presidency, but that I mentioned earlier on, but the commitment of the G20 to strengthening multilateralism must then act in a manner that is consistent with the purposes and principles of the UN Charter. Our presidency provides us with an opportunity to ensure that the priorities of the Global South find expression firmly onto the agenda of the G20. South Africa will use this G20 platform to shine the spotlight on the African Union Agenda 2063. So again, just linking that up to my opening remarks on the importance of the African continent and the AU in South Africa's foreign policy. Under its G20 presidency theme, South Africa is advancing 4 priorities in the Sherpa and finance tracks. And that is strengthening disaster resilience and response, ensuring debt sustainability for low-income countries, an extremely important issue also for Africa, mobilizing finance for a just energy transition, and harnessing, in the 4th place, harnessing the critical minerals for inclusive growth and sustainable development. So from those are, as I said, the 4 priorities that we have in our year of presidency. But also then we have high-level deliverables that come from this. These high-level deliverables are mainly in the form of task forces. The idea of a task force is that in the year of your presidency, you would execute everything that that task force needs to achieve. This helps us to make sure that going forward, we have achieved certain issues and we don't leave it for the next presidency to take things forward. Because the next presidency obviously will have its own high-level deliverables, its own issues that they want to promote in terms of how they see the geopolitical environment or how they see some of the forces driving their priorities as domestic priorities. So for us, the working groups, the 15 working groups we find in the Sherpa track, as well as the engagement groups of which you are one, we would push the task forces to deliver this year, and the working groups have a perpetual agenda that move through the years and that have certain issues that stay in that working group. So what are the 3 task forces that South Africa has established? The first task force speaks to inclusive economic growth, industrialization, employment, and inequality. So this task force obviously deals with something that is domestically very important to us, but actually to any G20 member, and that is the idea to have sustainable economic growth that is inclusive of all your role players in the economy. So that's the first one. The second one is a task force on food security. Needless to say, food security is extremely important to the developing global south and especially to our continent. So what we will see, for example, one of these task force 2 meetings we will take to Africa, to an African country where we will discuss how we achieve what we have set for ourselves in the second task force, which deals with food security. Task Force 3 deals with artificial intelligence, data governance, and innovation for sustainable development. So all the good things that can come out of this new industry, if we can call it that, AI, data governance, innovation, all the good things that can come out of that to support our sustainable development agenda, those issues are discussed in Task Force 3. So you can see from this how working groups would contribute to this. For example, Task Force 3 would be supported by the work we are doing in the working group on a digital economy or the working group on innovation and research. So that is important. As I mentioned earlier on, we are also concluding this very first cycle of about 18 years of or 20 years of G20. So what we are doing as the president of the G20 this year, we have established a review of the G20 at 20. So this review basically reflects on the work of the G20 over the years. This is a reflection on key achievements and the way forward. Not only achievements, but also to say, what is it that we have committed to but have not achieved? So this is an honest review in which all the G20 members participate, as well as the invited countries of our presidency. So it entails a high-level qualitative assessment of progress against the commitments and targets since 2008, when we actually became a G20 group at summit level, at leaders or heads of state and government level. The review will also look at ways to ensure that the G20 remains purpose-driven and able to coordinate global responses to economic and financial crises. Then there is a cost of capital review. I think this is one of the most important issues for many, many of us. So South Africa is reviewing the cost of capital during its G20 presidency. So just to reflect a little bit on this, there are two tracks in G20. It's the Sherpa track and you have the finance track. Now, you will see that the finance track has a very set agenda, and they are a typical financial in nature set, what can I call it, rules of engagement and how they, basically how a bank would deal with you. So it's a very set structure in terms of how they deal with issues and what they want to achieve. The Sherpa track, on the other hand, 15 working groups and all the engagement groups that you are part of sit in the Sherpa track. So there you can see that naturally the level of ambition is much higher. So what we wanted to do is actually to have this review in the Sherpa track. But we must also recognize or acknowledge the fact that a cost of capital is a financial issue. So it is at the moment sitting in the financial track, and there is a prominent panel that deals with these issues of cost of capital. The overarching goal of this initiative is to investigate the issues that impair the ability of middle-income countries to access sufficient, affordable, and predictable flows of capital and finance that will ensure that they have environmentally responsible and socially inclusive development plans. As you know, colleagues and professors and leaders here, the cost of capital prevents many countries of delivering on their basic mandate. It is very well known that about 40% of the world's emerging and developing countries spend more money on debt service than they would spend on public health or education. In some countries, it is almost impossible to deliver on these services once you have serviced your debt. So it is one issue that is extremely important to us, and in Africa we refer to that as the Africa. What is it referred to? The Africa Premium, for the significant amount of premium you pay for the debt you have to secure for your development and basic services. So then, secondly. Some of the other high-level deliverables that we have is elevated compact with Africa. So this is actually building on the German G20 presidency, and it boils down to a broadened and elevated pact between private sector and Africa to develop and contribute to mobilizing domestic and international support through an improved investment framework for Africa. At the moment, 14 countries are now members of the Compact with Africa, and that was after Zambia, as recently as April this year, joined the pact. So to say to you, Ambassador, in Addis we will bring to Addis a meeting on the Compact with Africa in August to look at how African countries can further benefit from this compact and how private sector can support the initiative. So this is a high-level event that we plan for Addis. There's also one initiative on critical minerals. This initiative is basically recognizing the fact that Africa has 30% of the world's mineral reserves, including some of them that are critical, and 90% of the world's chromium and platinum. It also hosts the largest reserves of cobalt, diamond, platinum, and uranium. So it's very evident that when it comes to critical minerals, we need to have a coordinated policy approach to that, because those minerals, what we really want to see at the end of the day is that beneficiation takes place at home, and that speaks to many of our issues to address domestic economic issues, or what we call in South Africa the triple challenge of unemployment, poverty, and inequality. So very, very important, this critical minerals initiative, where we focus on 3 areas, namely increased investment in exploration, increased beneficiation at home, and the integration of artisanal mining into mainstream economies. Other priorities that we are advancing this year, I'm slowly approaching the end of my presentation, but just to speak to some of the other priorities that we chase or that we pursue in the working groups. As I mentioned, there are 15 working groups in the Sherpa track. So some of the issues that we are championing and that are broader and cross-cutting would be the reform of the multilateral trading system and the international financial architecture. As I mentioned, if you look at something like the Bretton Woods institution, sorry, I'm becoming repetitive, but if you look at the establishment of the World Bank, the IMF, those institutions are now 80 years old. So they need to reform to include the majority of people in the world. So for us, that reform is extremely important. Overall of the international financial architecture, we can't say that enough. Of course, we need to also address climate change. We need to promote diversity, equity, and inclusion. I'm sorry that some of the major countries in the G20 would not like to hear this, but we ask you to support us in that regard, or in this regard. We cannot continue. With the status quo. Let's just say that. We cannot do that. We need to ensure that there's diversity, equity, and inclusion. And that is also why our presidency speaks about that issue of solidarity, equality, and then, of course, sustainability. Exploring ways to increase the predictability, scale, and flow of climate finance is critical to enable the just transition and mitigation and adaptation efforts. There seems to be, we seem to forget that adaptation is for us also very important, and more so on the African continent. But of course, you know that just transition means that we are in a sustainable fashion going to transit to cleaner energy in a way that does not mean people lose their jobs, their livelihoods, and the way that we need to support actually our communities. Whilst there are divergences on some of these issues, there is still overwhelming support for South Africa's priorities by G20 members. And I think this is a very important statement, colleagues, to make, because we need to acknowledge the fact that the G20 is an organization that's been coming for a good 20 years. It also more than 20 years, but in summit format, more than 17 years. So this means that one country cannot influence the future of the G20. You might have, like any road that we travel on, you might have a little bit of a speed bump or a major speed bump, or in South Africa's case, we can all relate to a pothole. But that does not mean that the road stops. You know, the G20 will survive. If you have a hiccup, the G20 is much bigger than one or two countries. So we need to be focused, and we need to make sure that whatever we build this year as South Africa, that might become a legacy, if that does not happen immediately after our presidency, we will continue as South Africa to support those issues on the long run in the G20. And that includes many of the issues that you find dear to yourself and to your organizations. So let me maybe just then speak a little bit about something that might be the most important thing for you. And that is the fact that we are hosting a people-centered, inclusive G20. We are presiding over a G20 that is people-centered and inclusive. So what we are doing here today is part of this approach. We are engaging as far as possible everyone that is part of the G20 ecosystem, if we can call that something like that, Prof. But so our presidency is not only about promoting working groups and finance track, it's also about promoting the work that you are doing and that engagement groups are doing. So this is not new. This should not be new to South Africans, because that's basically the approach we had to our democracy, you know, a fully inclusive approach. So if there's one country that can survive this type of geopolitical challenges that we see today, it is South Africa, you know. So the majority of the G20 members still support what South Africa is doing today. So we're not giving up. We're not giving up and saying, okay, let this thing die, or let we all go back to the finance track, everything in engagement groups die. We're not going to do that. We are going to stay ambitious, and for us, we are still 6 months away from summit. 6 months is a very long time. If we want to become less ambitious, we are definitely not going to say it now. You know, so we are driven by the idea that every working group will have an agreed ministerial statement. We are also driven by the idea that we will host a G20 social summit. Now, as you know, that idea started last year with Brazil. Brazil and South Africa are very much like-minded. So this year, we will host a G20 social summit. The G20 social summit is also bigger than the Leaders Summit in terms of participation, in terms of numbers. So we are very committed to that event, and we are even more committed to the build-up to that event. And that is basically supporting all the engagement groups to get to that stage where on the 18th of November, we start hosting the G20 Social Summit. So just to say that we are working on that, and that the engagement groups and the social summit are critical to ensuring that the G20 stays relevant, focused on democratic, inclusive, and comprehensively supporting everything that is important, not only to government, but definitely to the people, and the people in the widest sense possible, you know, not only in South Africa, but then also in all the G20 members. There's 9 countries invited, there's 24 international organizations invited. So this element for us is therefore extremely important, and we will continue to support the processes that will lead us to that. One example of such support is when we do go into the third Sherpa meeting, we will have, our Sherpa will have, all the Sherpas of the G20 will have an engagement with engagement groups. So we are very much aware of what you are doing, and we recognize the importance thereof. And we want to take you along in the journey, because this is a whole of South Africa approach. But more than that, it's an approach that transcends boundaries in terms of membership of your organizations and of the G20. I think, let me then conclude by just mentioning some of the key opportunities. So we feel that the G20 is a good opportunity to build on the successes of multilateralism through solidarity, and to ensure that a rules-based multilateral system stays in place. This would, of course, mean the very ambitious goal of achieving the Sustainable Development Goals. Of course, this will also mean that we have meaningful outcomes in the International Conference on Finance for Development that will take place in Spain towards the end of June, and the 30th Conference of Parties for the COP, the United Nations Convention on Climate Change. So, we feel there are several high-level, the confluence of several high-level events that can support not only our G20 presidency, but also the agenda of the Global South. And that is basically Finance for Development in Spain, then later in the year, the COP30 in the jungle in Brazil, and then our own G20 summit presided over by a developing country like South Africa. To situate inequalities at the heart of economic policy making, we need to recognize the disparities in wealth and development within and between our countries. We need to further work on debt relief initiatives. We need to leverage private sector investment and ensure that multilateral development banks play a meaningful role. We need to advance sustainable solutions, and we ask you to support us in that. And we need to meet the needs of the present without compromising the ability of future generations to meet their own needs. And this is where the idea of just transition also comes in. Maybe let me stop there and just thank you for the opportunity to speak here today, and to say to you that we have the best of intentions to engage in this fashion from government side, from the presidency of the G20 side. We're not a very big team, so sometimes it's not always possible to have this type of engagement. And as I mentioned earlier on, it's actually the best part of the day to do this type of engagements with you. And I'm really thankful for the invitation. My colleague Tiegoy has just walked in. I feel much better now with her joining us, because she's our engagement group specialist. So on that note, colleagues and professors and excellencies in the room, thank you very much for this opportunity.